You scroll past another headline about conflict somewhere in the world. You tell yourself you'll skip it this time. You don't. Something in you needs to know what happened, who did, what to whom, how it ends. That pull isn't weakness, it's ancient. For most of your life, you've probably assumed war is a modern invention, something born from nations, borders, ideology. But the real answer is far stranger. War, or something close to it, may be older than agriculture, older than cities, possibly older than language itself. Your brain didn't evolve in a world of peace occasionally interrupted by violence. It evolved in a world where violence was a constant background hum, a risk to be tracked every single day. And the machinery built to track that risk is still running inside your skull right now. Start with the anthropologist Napoleon Chagnon. In the 1960s, he lived among the Yanomamo people of the Amazon for years at a time, documenting their social structure in extraordinary detail. What he found challenged the comfortable idea that small, traditional societies were inherently peaceful. Chagnon recorded frequent raiding between villages, revenge killings that could stretch across generations, and a social status system where men who had killed held more prestige and, notably, more wives. His work was controversial. Some argued he exaggerated the violence, others that he misunderstood its causes. But even his harshest critics agreed on one thing. Lethal conflict between human groups was not rare in our past. It was routine enough to shape how status, reputation, and reproduction worked. That detail matters more than it seems. If violence between groups was common enough to affect who survived and who reproduced, then it wasn't just an unfortunate event. It was a selection pressure, and selection pressures leave fingerprints. They shape brains. This is where the work of evolutionary psychologists John Tooby and Leda Cosmides becomes essential. In the 1980s and 90s, working out of the University of California, Santa Barbara, they proposed something called coalitional psychology. The idea is simple to state and unsettling to sit with. Your mind, they argued, contains cognitive systems specifically built for group conflict. Systems that rapidly sort people into us and them. Systems that track who is loyal, who might defect, who poses a threat. You didn't choose to have this software. It came pre-installed because the ancestors who lacked it were simply less likely to become your ancestors. Think about how fast you can sort a crowd into categories. A team jersey, an accent, a flag on a lapel. You barely notice yourself doing it. That speed is the giveaway. Slow, deliberate reasoning doesn't feel like that. Only deeply practiced, ancient circuitry reacts that quickly. Here's the part that reframes everything. This coalitional machinery wasn't built for battlefields with weapons. It was built for something smaller and stranger, band-level conflict, where groups of 20 or 30 people, often related to each other, competed over territory, resources, and mates. No armies, no generals. Just kin groups making fast decisions about who to trust and who to fear. And your brain still runs that program. Every time you feel a flicker of tribal loyalty over something as small as a sports team, or a flash of suspicion toward an unfamiliar group, you are watching Pleistocene software execute on modern hardware. So why can't you stop thinking about war? Because somewhere underneath the newsfeed and the history documentary, your mind is doing exactly what it was built to do. It is gathering intelligence on rival coalitions. It is asking, quietly and constantly, who is dangerous, who is safe, and which side you belong to. There's a physiological layer to this, too. The primatologist Richard Wrangham at Harvard spent decades studying chimpanzees, our closest living relatives, and found something disturbing. Chimpanzee communities engage in coordinated, lethal raids against neighboring groups, patrols that creep silently to the border of their territory, listening for vulnerable outsiders. Wrangham argued this points to a deep evolutionary root for coalitional violence, one that predates humans entirely and stretches back to a common ancestor shared by both species. If our nearest relatives do this without culture, without language, without ideology, then the drive toward group conflict may be older than the very things we usually blame it on. That's uncomfortable. It's easier to believe war comes from bad leaders, bad economies, bad ideas. Easier to believe that if we just fixed the right system, the impulse would disappear. But if Wrangham and Chagnon and Tooby and Cosmides are pointing at something real, the impulse isn't a bug in a broken system. It's a feature of an old one one that predates every political structure you've ever heard of. Does that mean war is inevitable? No. Having the underlying software doesn't mean the program has to run. Humans also evolved extraordinary capacities for cooperation, empathy, and trade across group lines, capacities that, over long stretches of history, have measurably reduced violence in many societies. The psychologist Steven Pinker documented this trend extensively, showing that despite modern headlines, rates of death from group conflict have dropped dramatically compared to small-scale societies of the deep past. Chagnon's data itself, grim as it was, showed higher per capita violence in traditional societies than in most modern nations. The coalitional instinct is old, but it is not the only instinct you carry, and it is not destiny. Still, the instinct explains something about your daily experience that statistics alone can't. It explains why conflict, even conflict far away, even fictional conflict in a film or a video game, grips your attention so completely. Your ancestors who ignored signs of intergroup threat didn't get a second chance to learn from the mistake. The ones who paid close, anxious attention did. You are the descendant of the watchful ones, not the relaxed ones. It explains why group loyalty can feel more emotionally urgent than individual fairness. Why an insult to your team, your country, your family name can trigger a reaction that feels disproportionate to the actual event. The ancient calculation wasn't measuring the size of the insult. It was measuring the strength of the coalition and whether it needed defending. And it explains something quieter too. Why peace, real sustained peace, can feel almost unnatural to sit inside of. Why some part of you stays alert even when nothing is wrong. That watchfulness was once the difference between a lineage that continued and one that ended at a raided village 100,000 years ago. You are not a warlike person because you are broken. You are a watchful person because your ancestors had to be. The raids that shaped Chagnon's Yanomamo villages, the border patrols Wrangham documented in chimpanzee troops, the fast coalitional sorting Tooby and Cosmides mapped in the modern mind, all of it points to the same conclusion. Conflict didn't just happen to your species. It helped build the mind you're using to read these words right now. So tonight, when you catch yourself doom-scrolling through another distant conflict, when you feel that unexplainable pull toward the story of us against them, remember what you're actually looking at. Not a personal flaw, not a modern obsession, just an old circuit, still checking the horizon for threats that mostly aren't there anymore, still asking the same question your ancestors asked around a fire 100,000 years ago. Who is with you and who is against you? You scroll past another headline about conflict somewhere in the world. This time, you understand exactly why you can't look away.